Hello, my name is Adam Bean and welcome to the 36th edition of airhacks TV. And it is 36th edition, so I think this is the third year. So probably we have something like a birthday or anniversary of airhacks today, I guess. So let's celebrate that somehow. So thank you for watching 36 times, actually. So let's start with the first topic. And the first topic is unusual because I get so many requests about what's up with the regular Java EE workshop. So Bootstrap effective, and I was also asked for testing. So what I did the first time actually, so I published the dates up front, and the first 2 days are almost booked out and or sold out. And we have soon the HTML5 workshop, and you will see in summer, June 27th, there will be Bootstrap, Java EE, effective Java EE, and testing. So now with the regular topics. And the first topic is Java EE news, and actually very good news. So there is an email from Linda De Michael from the expert group, and what they said, we get a public review of Java EE 8 in April-May 2017. Proposed final draft in June 2017, and final release just before vacations, I guess, is 2017. So what I stated over and over again, that like Oracle is on vacation, so they are not working on Java anymore, and what it looks like, they are now recharge and working, cranking like crazy, building a Java 8, and it is actually be ready to use before Java 1 even, which are actually great news. And yeah, all the promises from the keynote at Java 1 2016, they're actually hold. So really great news about the Java EE progress. So particularly interesting, we have JSON B, lots of works is going on, is like JAX B for JSON. JAX RS is also in pretty good shape. We even get something like a Flow API, which is going to look like the Java 9 Flow API. So CDI 2.0 is doing well, and the security is doing well. So actually good news for Java EE. So, and we have already some attendees from Brazil, and which is really nice. Okay, Java EE 8 news done. HA singletons in Java EE 8. So I will switch to the origin questions from GitHub gist. And what you see here is the first question from Monsieur Jayetz, and seems that Whitefly supports HA singletons in a clustered environment. This is true, it always supported that. Does Payara support that feature too? And the question is how Whitefly supports that. And what Whitefly does, cluster means you have multiple instances of application server. And there is, you can say, there's a HA singleton, and this class is going to be active on one cluster. If this cluster node dies, it becomes awake on the other side, or on another node, on the backup node. And Payara had something like this in the cluster mode, but I don't like to rely on HA singletons in Whitefly or pinned object on BA. So what I would rather do to rely on Hazelcast or Infinispan, and because they come with like distributed data structures like maps, queues, and executors, and they are more portable than proprietary application server features. So if you are searching for singletons, the question is why you need a singleton. Probably you will have to open a certain amount of connections with the backend, or do something like this. So what you can do, you can rely on built-in, for instance, Hazelcast map or Infinispan map, and store the data there, and this gets automatically distributed to all nodes. Another way to deal with singletons is just store the stuff in a database, so SQL database. Just databases are actually singletons. So yes, Payara or Glassfish had that in the clustered configuration based on, it was a framework called Shoal. Yeah, let's see, Shoal Java. Exactly. So Project Shoal, and the singleton from Glassfish was based on the project. And let's see whether Shoal had singletons. Java singleton, because whether it was exposed as you see. And you will probably find something like EJB singletons and shoal, but this is again not portable, and I would not rely on that, and I would not even rely on the project shoal because this project is not very popular. I would rather rely on Hazelcast and Infinispan. I just remembered the cluster and the old cluster Glassfish story and was curious whether it is actually still around the corner. So this was the HA Singleton. A question about JMS. Is it possible to avoid the JMS message redelivery in case of rollback of system failure? It absolutely is. The problem is this is provider-specific feature. So all JMS providers I know are able to do this. So if you look, for instance, at Apache ActiveMQ, this would be the configuration from Apache ActiveMQ. So what you can say, okay, for instance here, set maximum redelivery is 2 in case of rollback. So it says a transacted session is used and rollback is called. And rollback is called in case of a runtime exception as well. So the transaction is automatically rollback. And okay, so this is what you can do. And if you search, even it was always supported, it's a JMS message redelivery. You always will find redelivery. Exactly. So we'll find the old docs from BA, and there's also a message redelivery when you can set up, how often the message gets redelivered. But you cannot set it up using the JMS API. You have to rely on application server configuration or the SPI. Okay. So next one, Mac Pringle. Ask me. Okay. We have. So you can run Java on in clouds, and you can run it on your own machine somewhere. So what are the options? And he also says my project are not business critical. So I would say I'm running my server on or my applications on my own server. Why I'm doing this? Because I would like to set up everything from scratch and really understand what is going on behind the scenes. So if you rely on, for instance, Amazon ECS, you get now ready to use Docker. You don't have to set up the Docker and struggle with the network, but you don't learn as much. So Mac Pringle, the question is, if you are a consultant, I would go with bare metal server and build everything from scratch, and you will learn a lot how it works, how it behaves, and the speed is also interesting. Like my server is crazy fast, so I can launch several application servers in seconds. So, but if you spin up a cloud instance, it is a lot slower. The question why? Because they have to isolate stuff and do more work. And the question is always, or the questions you see actually what is the overhead of the clouds, or overhead, the setup overhead of the clouds, and how it behaves on bare metal. So having that said, for client projects where I really don't know, where they are going or how they are become popular, I would rather choose, a cloud before I would rely on my own servers. So I would say what I'm doing right now, I'm running on my server, but I'm still experimenting a lot with clouds and run some applications in the cloud and come back to the server and see how it works. So so this is what I can tell you. So I started with my own hardware in the year 2000, and I never regretted this. So I really learned a lot. So the next one from Roy. Yeah, great blog and videos. Yeah, thank you for watching. So I could record whatever I like, but if no one watches this is no added value. So, and interesting question. So ordered message stream handling via, for instance, Kafka. So Kafka is like, it looks like JMS based on files which are backed by a Zookeeper. And what Roy would like to have, have ordered message. So the first thing is, if you're relying on messaging protocols, you should not rely on the order of messages. This would be, I would consider best practice. If the order of messages is important, you are a little bit, in trouble. And Kafka ensures the order of messages, but the problem is if there's two topics, so the order of messages cannot be ensured anymore. And this is very similar to TCP/IP itself. So if you have you get TCP/IP packets, and each packet has sequence number, and the packets are ordered regarding to the sequence number. But if you open multiple connections, the order of the packets cannot be ensured anymore. And this is exactly what you get, the same problem what you get. So what you will have to do is to implement or to pass something like a correlation ID with the message, and wait until the message arrives and then order this. But what can happen then is you lose a lot of performance or scalability. So this might be an issue. So in your case, I would try to rethink your business case and try not to rely on the order of message before you implement the correlation IDs and try to sort the messages. And you will actually have to implement something like TCP/IP algorithms to say, okay, if the message didn't arrive, I will just request it again. And this makes the whole stuff more complex. Okay, the next one is just watch your boundary control entity airhacks video, where you place exceptions and other cross-cutting things. And this is actually very easy to explain. So if you have, let's say, airhacks messages boundary. So I would say here messages resource class. So messages resource, and this would be a component called messages. I could get another component called, for instance, ordering boundary and like whatever. And the question is where to put like out of order exception, right? Or invalid state exception, which would be common to both of them. And the question is relatively simple. The answer is very simple. I would put it here because it is common to both. So I would put the exception here, invalid state exception. And because it is a tree, it already means this exception is common to everything which is here. So this airhacks. So this is so if we had several applications which like messaging 24, and I would put it on this level, it would mean this this exception would be shared across applications, like another application called workshops, like for instance, workshops registration. So what is also very common, this is actually never happens in my project. So I always have one project per, or one microservice per war even. No, never multiple applications per war. So this is uncommon. But to make it more realistic, so let's now delete this. It would look like that. So messaging invalid state exception. And then if because it is common to all the boundaries. And what I could also get in this case, messaging.jaxrs application, and this is annotated with the path, and yeah, this is top level. So, and if I need some other cross-cutting concerns, I never try to, or I never implement, or create a package called util. I would rather try to do messaging.logging and say, okay, here are the loggers and messaging configuration. So it means these are the main responsibilities, but they are not business responsibilities rather than cross-cutting concerns. On this and this class, both classes are common for all other components. I hope now it's crystal clear. If not, I will have to record another video about this. So let me know if it's clear. If not, I will create a screencast. So another one, I have a app war, and I want to deploy this war into two separate subfolders at the same Wi-Fi instance. And so the only thing I can imagine is this app war contains static assets like React, HTML5 or whatever. and your services, and this had to be split to 2 different folders. So what you could achieve, you could do, so I would actually create 2 wars. This is actually what I always do: a UI war and the services war. And the UI war, or zip, even just contains HTML5 and JavaScript, and the backend just contains the REST services. And you could, of course, create or play with your build scripts and to try to separate that. But this is highly proprietary, and this is also very, I would say, unstable. At any point of time, the whitefly can change behavior, and then you are stuck with the solutions. Okay, Pavel, so old friend, actually interviewed him on my blog. He asked me, states I talk a lot about thin wars. And the problem is he has some useful libraries like Apache Delta Spike, and the question is where I put these. And so, for instance, I never had the need to use Delta Spike in production. I use Delta Spike for testing, and the library has to be really, really useful until I put it into the war. This could be like serialization library. So recently I used Cryo for certain reasons for JAX or serialization. So this was inside a war, but it was not that big. But this could be actually one of the killer features of so-called how they're called micro or micro application servers like Payara Swarm, Payara Micro, or Whitefly Swarm. For instance, what you can do with Payara Micro, you could create your own jar containing, all the libraries you need, and then point to the thin war outside the Payara Micro. What you gain from that is basically, if you're using cloud deployments, or everything is basically based on Docker, you will build the Payara Micro once with all your dependencies, in your case Delta Spike, and the thin war will remain thin, and you will only have to rebuild the Payara Micro in case a new version of Delta Spike is on the horizon. The same is true in Whitefly Swarm, and this is called hollow jars. And the question is, do you completely omit any additional dependencies beside Java E? I would say in most cases, absolutely. So this is what I try to do. And I never regret that. So if I don't have any dependencies, I don't have to think about upgrading them, about patching them, about security issues, about hit by bus issues, developers no more available, or and just the library disappears one point of time. And we had already the issue not with the Delta Spike, rather than, I think it was called Seam Solder. It was like the precursor of Delta Spike. I think it was Seam Solder. It was no more maintained anymore, and we have to move somewhere else. And then it's okay. Then we don't use any additional library. We just we just use Java E7 and nothing else. Or what you can of course do, if you don't have the micro, you can create a base image of your application server, which inherits like from the official application server image, and then put all your dependencies there. Okay. Yeah, this would be a provided dependency. And by the way, Pavel told me once that in his team, someone has my last name, Bean, and also uses EGBs, which is funny because I never met someone else with my last name. So interesting. So next one. Vonix 2000. By the way, I have to double check whether there are questions from chat. No questions from chat. No questions from Twitter. I think the issue is I started today half an hour earlier, and this is probably oh no. So if you very good, Mr. Tucker, if you started to have a lot of exception classes, would you end up with a messaging exceptions package? No, not exceptions package. So I would say I never had the issues. Then inside a messaging package, I get 20 exceptions. It's unrealistic. So and the exceptions usually are not cross-cutting. So only a view exception are cross-cutting exception. Usually, for instance, you get logging exceptions, but the logging exceptions I will put in logging package because they are logging related. Configuration exceptions I will put in the configuration package because they are configuration related. And yeah, and only, you know, my business exception or whatever exception would be in the top level package. Perfect. Okay, so next one is interesting. BC archetype. Thank you for using my stuff, which is deployed on Para server. Do you know any way to get the code coverage for such systems, preferably with Jacoco Kubertura? Absolutely. So actually, I don't know whether they are recorded as screencasts, but this is what I show at the workshops at Munich Airport, for instance. So what you have to do is you only have to set up the Jacoco agent on the application server and exclude all the, you know, or Glassfish or Whitefly packages. And then if you kill the server, you get the Jacoco exec file, and the Jacoco exec file can be used in your IDE or Sonar, and you get the code coverage for system tests. So this is how it works. You have to set up the Jacoco agent, kill the server, and after the system test, you get the code coverage. So, and also very good questions. Avonix is excellent questions. Thank you. I read your blog post about JSON-P conversion. So actually someone company asked me what is my thinking about JSON and DTOs and should they use or not. It's like before I ask you via email, I write a blog post. And what I did, JSON, new DTO, and then bean thing. This is the blog post I wrote. Where is it? JSON is the new DTO and then bean. Very good. So I found that, and this is what I did in projects, and it worked well. It's a little bit ugly, so I mean ugly from the conceptual perspective, but it works really well. So the following. So each domain object, it could be entity whatever, expects in a constructor JSON object, and this object deserializes itself, and can have any number of 2 JSON methods, which serializes itself to JSON. So this is deserialization and serialization, and hence it is within the object you have the access to all the private state. You don't need getters and setters, just works very well. And then in the resource you can just, you know, say, okay, this store all, and I can just you know, convert the workshops to JSONs and do whatever with streams. And now I get a question, which is a very good one. JSON-B is around the corner, and JSON-B will come with annotations, so I could annotate the domain objects. And whether I would still use my approach, and I think so, because if we look at the blog post, where is it? Here. So a cool story is I could have any number of 2 JSON methods and actually use it once already in a project, and I could even, you know, return slices of the objects, or even, you know, how to call it, if this workshop would have a link to the attendees, I could create a custom JSON with the object and parts of the attendees, so there I'm more flexible. Of course, what I probably will do, I will start with JSON-B, and if this doesn't work anymore, then I will switch back to this approach, because this is a little bit more work. But with having that said, more work, what I see still in project is like developers are copying without any reasons DTOs and entities back and forth, and this is a lot more code than this. And in some projects, they even write by hand, you know, strange to string methods, which is also very similar to this. What you can also do, you can actually modify the toString template in your IDE to generate this. This is very, very similar. Okay, I think we covered this well. So, one, please, if you can, write, you know, shorter questions, because I will have to, you know, rereading takes a longer time. So first, tech stack for a new product. 2 main problems. So first is bootstrapping a product for different environments, diff test, different production environments, and says, okay, where Spring Boot shines, there is no concept in Java EE with that. and it's absolutely true. But what I recognize, actually, all my clients have already something in place. So if you have Docker, the idea would be that the Java applications should not know in which environment you are, and all the configurations provided externally by Docker. And there is already a similar question later. For instance, in one of my current projects, we use Tommy, and what Tommy is able to do, you can just place environment entries variables in your configuration file, and Tommy will replace that at load time. And then at starting Docker, you just say, okay, I'm in test integration or whatever, and you just provide the different values for different environments, and the problem is solved. This is a matter of a property file. And most of my recent projects, recent means in the last 3 years, we didn't have, 50 different resources rather than usually 1 to 2 databases and, I don't know, 1 to 3 different microservices. But the microservice communications already solved by Docker. And the only thing which remains are probably credentials. And for the credentials, I wouldn't use something like this. Rather than you will rely probably on etcd, OpenShift. There is a way to store the credentials already. This is like binary store for credentials. I think it's even called secrets. I think it's called secrets or credentials. Or there is another great product called HashiCorp Vault. So it's like password as a service. So password encryption as a service. It's also open source. So there are lots of. So I don't think it belongs actually to the application to care about the environment. So my wars are identical in all environments. Okay. I hope it's clear right now. And if you go to my YouTube channel, so I had several screencasts regarding staging and Docker, and a microservice in Docker with Docker networks, and you will see what I'm doing, because the application is completely unaware in which environment is the application running. So UI stack. So okay, what to choose? And this is actually the whole day of the first HTML5 workshop in March we do in Munich. And the gist of this, or the essential, what I would try to look at the standard first. And in 2017, we can go already pretty far. So ES6 is the new JavaScript, looks almost like Java, this is perfectly usable. We have web components, service workers. So with that, you can build with a Swing-like or JavaFX-like applications without any additional framework. And if you choose frameworks, I have to be a little bit careful, but in my opinion, Angular 2 is a little bit over-engineered. It's like Java-E, or not Java-E, J2E, the old J2E applied to JavaScript. Like you have to specify providers in order to get injections. Then you can inject something, and then you have to create module first and maintain all the dependencies. It's like dependency injection without conventional configuration. This is how we do classify Angular 2. So if you have a huge application, go with Angular 2. If the application is smaller, React is a lot nicer. And you should also look at Polymer. Why? Because Polymer tries to go with standard first. And then my hope is that in one time, this Polymer just provides additional, or niceness, or additional syntactic sugar, which is optional. And then you can rely on, because right now there's still a polyfill, so to make the components works in different browsers. So I have the same philosophy in UI as at the backend. Look at the standards first, and then you will live longer. Of course, they're not that exciting, a little bit boring because it's standard, but yeah, in one point of time, it just has to work. Okay. This is the question. How you manage database connection Docker? I'm using Tommy, and I define a connection as a resource Tommy. So what Tommy does, if you go, let's see whether you can find it. Tommy configuration environment entries. So it's actually documented. There should be a placeholder. So in the newer Tommy documentation, there's a little bit harder to find. Variables. No, but it is the Tommy. Now they are rewriting the documentation, and in the newer documentation, there is a they show, you know, this is basically very simple. In the tommy.conf, you just use with the dollar curly braces, you put the name of the operating system variables, the environment entry or environment variable, and it's get replaced automatically by Tommy. Before that, what I used on my server, envsubst is like Unix tool which does the same. So it will substitute in whatever file you give the tool the variables with the actual content, which happens to be provided by environment entries, and with Docker with the -e switch, you can easily do this. So with that, you can actually feed all application servers on Earth which read configuration files. And in Tommy specific case, you can skip in the new Tommy this envsubst with the native Tommy capability. So you are lucky because it comes with Tommy out of the box. This one is also interesting. The question is, what the hell is the JavaFX Singleton? And the answer to this is you won't find it in CDI because the whole story was the following. So there is the jcp.org, so which is Java community process, and there is a specification is called 330, and it's called dependency injection for Java. And surprisingly, it was proposed by Roy Johnson in the year 2009. And as you probably know, the Mr. Johnson was behind Spring, so they tried they actually standardized. They standardized the dependency injection. The funny thing is, they were crazy fast. So they proposed the spec and implemented the spec in about 6 weeks or 8 weeks. So it was a very short amount of time. But there is no PDF, so they just provided the tests, the Java doc, and the implementation without writing about that. This is the reason why you don't find the PDFs. But the cool story was, at the same time, there was CDI going on, and CDI had own annotations, and I think they call it in and out. And what happened? The spec leads look at this spec, say, okay, this is cool. Actually, it's proposed by the Spring guys. We should not ignore that. And they just replaced the CDI in and out annotations with JSR 330. So what we get right now, we get the whole dependency injection is based on 330. And the CDI uses that. So for me, what I did once, I said, okay, the 330 is like JDBC and the CDI is like JPA. So JPA needs JDBC. But the problem is there's some overlap. Like this JSR 330 also comes with a Singleton, and the Singleton is also provided by CDI called application scoped, which is a little bit confusing. But yeah, this is both annotations doing the same. This is a history. 7 years old, crazy. So yeah, it is supported by CDI and Weld and everyone. So I never tried to integrate Swagger because what I used is a great tool from Monsieur Dashner. It's called JAX RS Analyzer. And this JAX RS Analyzer, what this thing does, it generates the Swagger file from metadata, and it works good enough. And what I don't like to be depending on Swagger annotations of my code. So it will, the whole code is depending on the Swagger annotations, and it's a lot of noise. And I wanted to say mess, but it's actually noise. And if you just look, for instance, PayPal, this is one REST API. So it is very well documented, but if you go here, let's see whether we find something. Okay, billing agreements. Create show agreement details. So if you look at this and you say, okay, show agreement details. This will be output of such API. Show details for a billing agreements, get payments, billing agreements. So you get the response and so forth. And it is really hard to write something sensible if the API is well done. So in the projects where the API is well done, this is like JavaDoc. It is really hard to write JavaDoc in projects where the methods are self-explaining. So what I see right now in the whole Swagger movement is the same what happens in JavaDoc. Developers just writing, get payments. So this REST returns payments, and then everyone is happy. But you can redirect the whole Swagger stuff in dev null. So I try to avoid these Swagger annotations. What I use this plugin from Monsieur Dashner, Sebastian Dashner, and there's this plugin just examines the JAX-OS resource without any other annotations and create ASCII doc, which can be converted to HTML or PDF, and also Swagger file, which works well enough in my projects. Okay, cool. So let's see what happens in chat. Nothing in chat. So, okay, David Souls, okay, I should do a YouTube video on how to organize apps, the structure, boundary control, model, domain, repository, service. Okay, boundary control, entity, repository, service not needed. But yeah, I could create a screencast one time. Why not? So, this is answered. So the new Payara releases comes with deactivated auto-deployment feature due to security risk. What is the workaround? So what I will do in Doclens, Doclens is my project which comes with lots of GitHub, Adam Bean, Doclens. And there are lots of Docker images which I used as a base for my projects. And there is, for instance, Payara configured. And Payara configured is a placeholder for Payaras from projects. And what I would do, I would try to reactivate the auto-deployment here in the Payara configured. And then if an image will inherit from the Payara configured, I still get the auto-deployment. And I think the security issues are not that important in Docker, and are more important if you have shared deployments and should not be used in production actually on a standalone servers. So this would be my workaround. And I experience a long startup times. I also sometimes experience that, and unfortunately, the last time I experienced that was my Java 1 talk in San Francisco. So if you try to find my talk about microservices in San Francisco, I was really disappointed by my performance because it took forever to deploy of Payara to start. And what I think what it is if my Docker is running and I'm changing the network, it causes some timeouts. And my suspicion is that at the startup of Payara, it tries to ping, the motherships I'm starting, and they have some statistics. But if you change the the network settings, there's a very long timeout using Docker, probably 50 seconds. So it can take 15 to 20 seconds. So what I did at Java 1, I think I restarted Docker, and then it just worked properly. So it was very, very slow. But right now it's very fast. So if I restart Docker, if the network changes, the deployment performance is very fast, and I actually don't see any difference between the Payara Full and Payara Micro. So as you can see, Payara becomes more and more popular. Lots of questions regarding Payara. Yeah, please. How we deal with field validation in JavaFX and XML. I mean, this is a broader topic. You should look at Afterburner. I don't know whether you know Afterburner. Is like it's also on my GitHub. Afterburner FX. Exactly, and the Afterburner is like where is the here? So the Afterburner is like a model view controller framework for JavaFX. And what you would do, you would create a view with fxml, and all the controls would be injected to a control by JavaFX. And the validation I would solve with binding. I will bind the field values to a control, and the control will validate the fields. In case the value is invalid, you could, whatever, you can replace a CSS class and make the field red, or you can, you can play with the user interactions. So the sky is the limit. What I actually wanted to say, what you can also do, you can use bin validation inside JavaFX, because you can boot the bin validator, so Hibernate validator, for instance, with JavaFX. And I use this for integration testing. So I think it's called Validation Factory. And if you launch this, you can launch the Java EE validation framework within your integration test. It takes, I don't know, half a second or a second. You can do the same in JavaFX. So this is what I would do. Okay, the next one is the ComSunEL expression factory is not found. And I think, the issue with an older integration test, bin validation test. And this was in the blog post. And this is the error, what I got. It could be also your error. And then this was the build default validation factories. This is how to launch the. And you don't have to use Archelion for that. You can just do this. So I never use Archelion to test my bin validation. Just go with that. And I got a response from Gunnar, which was the spec lead back then, or still is, for validation 2.0. By the way, the bin validation 2.0 is also going very well. And what I did, they in the release 5.2, they seem to solve the issue. So if you first, I wouldn't use Archelion to test or to launch the validation framework. There are just 2 lines of code which worked well for me, and this is how to test validation in without the Archelion or the application server, or outside the application server. Okay, then the third question is, when we need to override get classes, get singletons in application class, only if you provide, your own JAX, B serializes, or do your own stuff. Otherwise, you don't have to do this. So, and let's see what happens here. Okay, everyone is happy. Perfect. So, a good one, Keycloak, is like a single sign-on solution which runs well on Whitefly. We use it in lots of projects. It's like security as a service. And there is an integration. So what Keycloak is like remote realm. There is a Keycloak and OpenAM. It is an old Sun product, OpenAM from ForgeRock and Keycloak, and they work similarly. And what happens is you have an application server which actually delegates or asks Keycloak all the time, with built-in caching, of course, may I, give the user the permission to access this URI. And what you can do, you can implement the Java adapter config, which means is like remote realm. So the application server asks a proxy which delegates to the Keycloak, and I would prefer that if available. If not available, usually what you do, you would use the servlet filter adapter, or you could implement your own container request or response filter. And of course, sometimes you will have to use the how it's called, client authentication. Yeah, and the particular form of client authentication is a JavaScript client, of course, like Angular or React. They can ask directly Keycloak, for authentication. So the answer is I would prefer Java adapter if available, if not the servlet filter, and client authentication for JavaScript. Okay. What's up with chat? India. Can you suggest any framework which can be used to service and orchestration in Java EE? There are lots of frameworks. I think one is called Cumulus. One framework is called forgot about that. How it's called? They won Java 1 Duke Award. But I have to say, I never used service orchestration frameworks, or I mean, OpenShift. I don't know whether service orchestration could be called OpenShift. So OpenShift is like a really nice framework which combines already etcd, HA proxy, and Kubernetes. Or is Kubernetes an orchestration framework? I think so. So I would suggest Kubernetes first, then OpenShift. And but if you ask me about API gateway, is usually I don't use API gateways in microservice architecture. I only use them if I really have to replace external providers at runtime or something like this, but not for my own application. By the way, what I forgot, there was a question which was funny, not funny. It was very good regarding the cloud. And open source is one of the clouds managed server, exactly. And he uses Lagom. And the Lagom comes with a nice video. And the cool story is, where is it? This is a screenshot of the Lagom video from the company called Lightbend. And they say, okay, how lightweight microservices can be built. And if you look at the code, is activity stream service implements activity stream service, and they have project Chirpa. If you look at the modules, it's like activity stream API, activity stream impl, chirp API impl, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 projects of one microservice. And why it's interesting, in a recent project, someone presented me, a Java microservice with 12 modules, and at the end we just created one war, which was very lean. And I just look at it. You have to watch the video. It was nice music and well done. And then I just looked at it, like, what's that? This is a microservice with 12 modules. I mean, to build this is terrible. I mean, you have here impl and interface, and if you would like to see what implements, the interface, you will have to click, in the IDE. And my question is always, what happens if they get the next another implementation of the activity service? Will they call it impl2? This would be interesting. So this is the Lagom story, which I remember. So I think we are done. It's the third year. So thank you for watching, and see you next month. And of course, next month also means probably even in Munich. So yes, there's this April. This is around the airhacks, and for sure the HTML5 essentials. Actually, the first day here, I would try how far you can go without any additional JavaScript frameworks, and then show a little bit of React and Angular. Okay, then thank you for watching, and see you next month or in March. Bye.